All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this Peninsula Clean Energy Authority's board meeting for Thursday, May 12th. So we will start with our roll call. Kirsten?
So I'll say your jurisdiction. Please state your name. County San Mateo.
Dave Fine.
County San Mateo.
June Ankermeyer.
Atherton. Belmont.
Rick Scholes.
Brisbane.
Lori Lou.
Burlingame.
Donna Colson.
Colma.
Joe Silva.
Daly City.
Mikey Gilda.
Ooh.
East Palo Alto. Foster City. Half Moon Bay.
Deborah Penrose.
Hillsborough. Menlo Park. Millbrae.
Ann Schneider, alternate.
Pacifica.
John Keener.
Portola Valley.
Craig Hughes, alternate.
Redwood City.
Ian Day.
San Bruno.
Marty Medina.
San Carlos. San Mateo.
Rick Bonilla.
South San Francisco.
Ravi Gupta.
And Woodside.
Daniel Yost.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're informed, we can proceed. So as people will remember, at the beginning of each meeting, we are swearing in anyone who hasn't attended a meeting previously. So if this is your very first meeting, we will administer the oath. And I don't know, oh, we do have Mr.
I think we have at
Hughes.
least one. I'm sorry.
Anyone else in their first meeting?
Greg, have you been sworn already?
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't been sworn, if you please stand and raise your right hand. And if it's just you, well, I guess it's just you. You're good enough. I'm going to say aye, and then please state your name.
I, Craig Hughes,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties on which I am about to enter.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
All right. So we will now take public comment from anyone in the audience who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. I do have one speaker card from James Tullia. James, would you like to speak now? That would be fine.
Yes, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time. My name is James Chalea. I live in Sunnyvale. My in-laws are in Foster City. I'm a volunteer climate advocate at the moment. I just left last month after 7.5 years in the energy efficiency programs and regulatory affairs at PG&E. So I've got some background to help out. I'm trying to help out what I can with PCE and the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Because your schedule has some rate setting decisions in June, I believe, I wanted to bring up an opportunity for you that you might not realize in case you're not already considering it. You may be considering it. I'm not privy to all the details of your drafts. But fundamentally, it's to ensure that among your rate options, to include an electrification rate option. You can think of it as similar to the existing PG&E EV rate for electric vehicles, but broadly available to others in households to be able to take advantage of time of use differences for being able to transition or fuel switch from natural gas appliances in the home to electric-powered heat pump-based appliances. So based on some research from UC Berkeley for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, this is the average San Francisco Bay Area household CO2 equivalent emissions for all consumption-based use transportation, housing, food, goods, and services. In the blue, you can see that's the direct emissions from, for the most part, fossil fuels, transportation and housing being big things, big areas to address. Within the household natural gas use, you'll see that 2/3 of the natural gas use is the emissions are coming from natural gas. So as you and others, including PG&E, make their electricity cleaner and cleaner, that part shrinks. Natural gas increases as a percentage of the household. So in order to reduce overall carbon emissions, natural gas is an area that I would recommend you target. You may already be thinking of doing that. Bottom line for PCE is that there are benefits from electrification, otherwise known as fuel switching. Increased market share and revenue from each household. Take more of PG&E's business from their natural gas side and make it electric. Expand your renewable energy totals. Lower greenhouse gas emissions. It also allows you to conduct programs that can give Peninsula Clean Energy and other CCEs a unique competitive advantage that PG&E and other utilities are currently restricted from doing because of rules against fuel switching. So in addition to your advantage, at least in the short term, for more renewable energy, a longer term, you want to look at longer term competitive advantages. And also, this is a way for customers to save money. Within the...
Also, James,
Are you over? Are you done?
no, we typically give 2 minutes, but you're providing some good information, but if you could just kind of...
Okay, so bottom line with the rest of it is water heating is the biggest target. Electric heat pump water heaters are the biggest of the three. There are heat pump dryers, HVAC systems, and water heaters. Water heaters are the best targets, but in order to go after that with some sort of program, include an electrification rate. This just gives some other background of why it's much better. And the key is, of all these things to consider, it's not a slam dunk. There are better targets than others in customer situations, but an early first step that's important is in your rate setting to make sure you do a time of use rate where there's a difference, a strong difference between off-peak, partial peak, and peak. Thank you.
Well, that's very helpful information, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to that. Do we have any other folks in the audience who would like to make a comment? Go ahead. Like maybe a couple cards there.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ted Howard from San Mateo, and just wanted to make a cautionary note. I know you are all aware of data privacy and security issues. Back a couple of years ago at the CPUC, we were engaged in a real intensive proceeding on data privacy issues and who owns the data. And I've noticed in this proposal with Noble Americas, we're saying explicitly that PCE will own the data. And that is a good provision to have, but it's also good to be cautious because as we went through this proceeding a few years ago, and there was SB 1476 that the CPUC had to follow and outline requirements for data privacy and security issues, that you need to be careful on the customer issue because they are ones that actually de facto own their own data and they're very sensitive to that. So we just want to make sure on an ongoing basis that it's clear that that's understood, especially with Green Button and other programs which are allowed for third parties to, such as Nobles and others, that will provide energy efficiency, demand response services and so on with smart meters, which is where this issue started to really come up. When you have smart meters, this data becomes available, who gets to access it, and the federal law, following the Fair Information Principles and Practices, the FIP, has outlined, and I'm hoping we're following that as well. But in the proposal, the agreement, I didn't see, for instance, a reference it did remind, or it did indicate the importance of encryption, but it also, per the law that we're supposed to follow, or PCEA is supposed to follow, it's important for disposal of customer data by shredding, erasing, or otherwise modifying the data in those records to make it unreadable or undecipherable through any means. I didn't see that particular reference in there. It might be good to have that in there. It may be in there buried somewhere, but I only saw a reference to encryption. So that's just a specific reference to that. So that's just the issue that I know you're very well aware, and the lawyers have also been very much on top of it. But it's just good to be aware of all those federal and CPC requirements. And then just more broadly, I don't know where you are in the mission state energy, and make it very clear and concise, but that would be my suggestion. There are other factors that might go into a mission statement, which would refer to local job creation, environmental justice, and so on. That's up to you, but that too needs to be brief and concise, of course. So against that, just the other aspect that needs to be balanced against is financial sustainability. At the March 4th Community Choice Conference in San Jose, Jeff Cyphers, the CEO of SCP, indicated that he would have and recommended strongly 90% retained earnings due to contingencies, which are very unforeseeable. So from a financial basis, you need to counterbalance that versus the very admirable goal of trying to get the greatest reduction in greenhouse gas reductions. And I know I don't know where, but you're doing market research on that particular topic, and you can't be chasing PG&E rates as has been discussed. But as of June 9th or a little bit after that, they'll probably increase the rates by an average of about 10% per month for residential customers due to the upgrade for safety requirement reasons of their natural gas pipelines. So that's just one more factor, and I know you've got many others to consider. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Any other speakers? I'd like to address the board. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to set the agenda, and I'd like to make the following recommendation, that we begin the meeting by having our closed session, where we will discuss the potential appointment of a chief executive officer and the terms of such a contract with an executive officer. Then we would come out of our closed session and report on any action we might take. And at that point, should it be warranted, we could take action on a contract. So I would like to make that as a suggestion for how we proceed tonight.
And is that also to approve the consent agenda?
And we will also need to approve the consent agenda, which, as you know, consists of 2 sets of minutes and a new appointment to the Citizens Advisory Committee. So moved. All right.
Yes.
So motion by Mr. Gupta and second Mr. Benian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Seeing none, that carries unanimously. So I apologize to the audience, but we will have to ask you to. We're going to. You found a place for us?
Yeah, right here.
Wow, boy, you really are.
They can stay.
That's all.
Everybody else has to get
All
up.
right. Apologize to the board. We're going to move. All right.
Going well, yeah. I mean, it's the same content. There's actually exactly part of my work during the presentation. But you know, the next one will be the discussion that'll be focused on well, they were going to provide it on their general feedback.
See you.
They're going to provide a general feedback
So who is responsible for that traffic? Who is responsible for that traffic?
It's inside. The road is longer than someone's.
So
She and there's a front door there.
Regular dimensional housing.
Yeah.
This other one is yeah.
Yeah, so I saw you signed up. So if we wanted to wait, or I'm sitting right now, the San
But it would
Mateo,
probably
Redwood
be,
City.
it would probably look like a blue line,
So
but
go
a
ahead
little
and
bit
send
lower.
But if you,
It's not bad, it's not gonna be anywhere near.
well, you can just go to the room here. Yeah, so we're also planning one right now between Los Angeles and Carlin, Oklahoma City,
Point
and
6 or sometimes they have.
all
Or that's
of them together. No, and we just combine one.
Yeah, I admire,
So it's
one of all these on your.
about
Yeah.
the 4X.
Yeah, it's the grind.
Yeah,
We're all
that's,
good.
It's a big, big
It's
difference. It's important,
but that's really important
that they run.
So this is our first step. We're doing it after.
They're gonna save energy, but they might not save
And
money.
so that was general question, like, where does that energy come from? Where the break's gonna be? I think it's probably gonna be the same time.
This is
still
over
doing
time.
it.
So the other
But I
thing
hope
is
this
that
one is excellent more, so we don't have to
difference now.
bring it, so it's like,
And this is the
it
perspective.
happened, and now it's gonna
So
happen.
you're only gonna get better when you start.
Yeah, so I think people will.
Now, because electric power is getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. So to the point where it's 100% clean, then this, area is better. So that's why this line goes down. This is a regular blue line, is an electrical water. So it will get better, not because it's more efficient, but it's just cleaner energy. So this is a measure of greenhouse gas.
Something I found a little is that I took the exterior lifestyle, I put a call Joe one day, and, so we did say at first there will be lower rates due to the conference room.
So,
That was like a red flag, because people were like, oh, they're just gonna raise their rates after, and I'm like, well, I don't wanna, I can't tell you they're always gonna be cheaper, right? So I try to explain like, well, your PCEA rates go up and down, so our rates will probably go up and down too. But people just wanna hear that they're going to be cheaper, and yeah, and I'm like, well, I can't tell you that, because that's unethical, so.
I wonder what the force in there, you sold the time and it goes here, you're trying to get a gauge of how that price will go, right?
So I think our, PA is more like the market.
after you got your shower, before the
Sorry,
rates go up.
specific energy.
So that's the opposite side. And that's the difference that I didn't read that myself.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they're looking definitely at like trying to decide, trying to project what our PPM might be, because some of these cities are deciding what to do for 100%.
So that's going forward. So then I'm
So
only
some cities are gonna have 100% default, possibly, so we're still figuring that out, but also we're looking at
that
the.
means that it's going to save all the money. It actually costs more on the state.
Well, so they, I mean, we've already decided that it'll be okay, but I think their council.
And there's some.
I don't think, yeah, because I don't think one representative should be represented in the city, and so we're kind of saying, somebody like your council has to do it. So then there's the other issue of municipal accounts being in, not 100% cities themselves, so that they use is 100%.
Outside of the air conditioning space.
Or is it just going
Yeah.
Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay, so
So the cities themselves have the option for municipal council, like,
So what-
the option. That's different than having the 100%.
So, so
Just for the
it's
city
good,
council.
just like I did, I had it go, I swapped out my.
that's let me sort it out.
Yeah, so we're also deciding to make that one, because that shows should the county or city be under, because it's like kind of almost like a funding thing, because it would increase their electricity costs and their budget.
So it was a 220 volt line. So if you don't already have.
Makes sense. Kind of letting you see because they're
You know, you have to unplug that. You actually have to run a whole other conduit to your electric. And that's a few $100.
buys it.
These are other things that and no matter how much it costs, it's still the same percent plan.
Yeah, so the default product kind of like turns out stuff, but then you just start yeah, we're near energy service provider. Well, so the energy service providers go out to the market and see what's there, and so they would kind of do they would bring it back, and then the contracts that get,
These are some things that would help. They don't have us all deal with it, but you know,
yeah, the energy services provider was actually
it's going to be better for them than
on behalf of PCEA. So they're the ones that are going to negotiate with the power provider.
in a household. So if you look at this chart,
Sorry, we have a lot of like.
Yeah, a lot of requirements, right?
household, average household is small.
I have a team. I'm kind of excited to get some back on the technical stuff. I'm working a lot on the side right now.
Yeah, you can almost, that's water heater now.
Yeah, there's a lot of
The gas service is a little more than a third.
This time, we're going to come back and talk about
Cooking is 7%.
yeah, so no one's going to present.
Gas dryer in a gas dryer is 3%. So this is the
They
biggest
might
topic.
make a decision to go back out on it if they
Cooking, this is the
don't. That's
next
the biggest. Oh, and finance.
and there are some other so if someone is looking to replace their air conditioner,
It was, yeah, so it's, this one is
and use it for heating and cooling in your full units, it's just a fact.
Correct me here, I thought that was 1.5
It costs roughly an extra $500 than just replacing the AC with the regular one.
So yeah, so there's a loan for the state, and then the county is putting up collateral for them. So the collateral is gonna be around $600, depending on how much work is also going on.
So that's for now, that's higher. And for some
Yeah,
people, that's
yeah, so the energy amount will be higher for somewhere.
depending on their situation, like the electrical dams outlined in both.
Yeah, so the 6 million will kind of just like
It's
either
enough to
will be
think
touched.
But it's collateral for one time.
It's collateral, yeah, for the loan.
I agree.
And then the 1.5 is for.
So the alternative is the next time you look to replace.
Yeah, so that's for some of our communications, the office space, the staff salaries, basically anything we need until we start getting cash revenue.
Is highly
in
efficient,
December.
electric, and it has the same qualities of gas, in that it's refined days, so you can complete the.
Yeah, because of the billing cycles, it grows
One of the challenges with
take a
reduction.
month to roll, about a month to get the yeah, it's a state offer.
Yeah.
It requires you
That's all
to have a certain type of pop.
And it's technically when we on like December, when the contract starting to
So
date,
some
they get
pots
paid
don't
out
work
first.
right, and so you have to, not only is it a pop, you have to.
The energy will get paid back first, and so we still need a couple months to get start paying back.
If you look at the big scheme of things, it's the right thing to do, and it's gonna save you money in the long run.
Wow. That's all very interesting. That's great. We make a really great policy.
Yeah, and it's.
Yeah, it's a lot of things.
These are.
That's why it's good to have a team who knows has their.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So one of these electric
Thanks for explaining that.
I got mine 2 years ago. At Sears for, it was on sale for $900. Now they can go as much as $1,500. So these can get between $1,000 and $2,000 depending on the model you get. But I got mine on sale at Sears 2 years ago for $900. I got two. I got $200 on a federal tax credit, so that was, you know, full $200 from the U.S. government when I filed my taxes, and $500 from PCEA, instant rebate at the retail store. So the whole thing cost me $200. Now it cost me I had to run another electric line. And so it cost me a lot to install it, but the unit was actually expensive because people were using efficiency programs. No, it's available for anybody. And that's still, I mentioned it here, rebate, $500 PG&E rebate, that's available even if you move to a CCD. But one of the things that Peninsula Clean Energy can do is they can do other things like the control that allows it to be automatically switched to a cheaper time. Those little units cost about $50 when you plug them in. So maybe Peninsula Clean Energy can have a rebate for the extra cost of that control, or buy a bunch of them involved in offer them all this. So there's lots of ways to do a program where customer can take advantage of the point of sale rebate that PG&E is doing with their program, plus something that Peninsula Clean Energy because it then switches the fuel from gas to which can be 100% clean. So it's a really good opportunity. Well, yes. So Los Altos is part of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. So it's the same thing, it's just the schedule for them. They're going to start customer services in April. So these guys are starting, they started in April. Now they've already formed, I was just at their board meeting last night. And they have 11 cities in the county, plus the county. The only ones that are not participating are Palo Alto and Santa Clara, which are communities. San Jose is looking to be their own communities, and Milpitas just didn't sign up. So they started to ask, but everywhere Santa Clara County is now has the CCE available. As then they're ramping up. They just hired their CEO last night. So they're going to do the same thing. Although these guys are going to start their services for customers soon. In part because some of the same consultants are involved. They're trying to spread out their work. Yeah, so Los Altos is available Oh, okay. Oh, why? Yeah. Actually, I live in Sunnyvale. Close. But Los Altos and Sunnyvale are all part of that Silicon Valley community. So, I've already started to talk to them about this. This group is going to set their rate structure next month. Silicon Valley community is not going to do that for January. So they actually have more time to consider it. I wanted to bring, even though this is on the agenda, I wanted to bring it up so they wouldn't miss it. That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah. Otherwise they have to come back and redo it, and it's going to be bad if they have to add more data. They also, they probably need to have an electric vehicle rate. Otherwise, it's like the only thing is that electric vehicle rate is that if they do exactly what you need, that's the rate I want. I have an EV rate. It's only for EV. So if someone wants to heat up a water heater, isn't eligible. So my point is that it needs to be more broad, available to all. It's part of, it's part of what they're planning to do. Yeah. And otherwise, they miss an opportunity for carbon savings and customer money savings. CO2 emissions in the home are natural gas. And all that PCEA is doing right now is the green part. So don't miss this opportunity.
Scared of gas anyway,
Yes.
right? So they have some meeting there and they use the gas that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. So,
Like, rather than all the customers switching to electric appliances. There's no solution where
natural gas is a fossil fuel, and anytime natural gas is a lot cleaner than coal. It's a lot cleaner than coal. It still produces carbon. When you burn the gas, then it produces carbon. So it's much better than having coal electricity or some others. But it's still a fossil fuel. And still produces carbon.
It was cheaper than gas.
But over time, gas is going to get more expensive. That's the last thing is that over time, because fossil fuels a limited supply. They found a whole lot more in the United States. So we bought ourselves 20 years. 20 years from now, it's going to start to run out again. So, renewables. Oh, thank you. I did. Yes. They're moving really fast, and so they're doing a whole bunch of stuff in parallel, and like trying to do the same. So I'm trying to get it out. I saw that stuff. I'm trying to just they're not just saying starting. They do. They probably. I had heard and so I didn't want to, as much as doing something like this here. It's certainly fair. Why not do it that way? Well, no. He's saying it's more effective. I don't intend that. Right. Not unless you're thinking. And, my samples on the example is real small. How are you? Fine. How are you? Thank you. I heard it. I'm trying to, I don't know where San Diego. Liking, it's just like, more broadly,
Dan, you a civil engineer?
I am.
There you are there. Dan comes next week, I'm gonna, next week I'm getting here early. This is where they put me. I need my left-handed seat over there.
I just go where I'm told.
Give Mike a hard hand over there. Good luck.
I think they went alphabetical this time.
Oh, did they? You're a nice guy.
Just for variety sake. My guess.
Okay, we're going to reconvene in open session. So it is my great pleasure to report out from the closed session that the Board of Directors of Peninsula Clean Energy have unanimously appointed Jan Pepper as our new Chief Executive Officer. And Jan is with us today. Stand up. For the benefit of our audience, I'd just like to say a few words about our process and about Jan's many fine attributes. We went through a very rigorous search process and went through 2 rounds of interviews with many members of this board participating, as well as staff, as well as outside experts such as the CEO of Marine Clean Energy and our town manager. So through that process, we had some excellent candidates, but we had a unanimous view that Jan Pepper was the person for this job. In her cover letter, she said this was it would be her dream job, and her career record really shows that that is the case. She brings to the job a long record in the energy industry. Most recently, she has been serving with Silicon Valley Power, where she is doing many of the key things that we need, such as power procurement and developing local renewable projects. She has tremendous regulatory and government experience and is in fact a member of the Los Altos City Council. So she knows the weirdness of working with public entities. Most importantly, she is a veteran of 4 energy startups and thrives in that environment because, after all, we are a startup and we are running very fast, and we are very comparable to the type of experience that she has experience with. So she brings to us expertise, can-do attitude, results-oriented, great intelligence, very friendly person. She's going to be a great leader of our efforts. So we could not be more excited, Jan, that you'll be heading up our venture. All right. So we now would like to bring forward publicly Jan's employment contract. I believe we distributed some copies, David, to the public.
They're all at the back table. Anyone
All right,
wants one.
should someone want one? And that contract has been distributed to the board, and we could take any questions or entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Carlton and seconded by Mr. DeGoya. All Mr. May? I didn't recognize your voice. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions?
Supervisor, since our regular is here, do I step out?
So it's absolutely up to the 2 of you. I mean, if you're inclined, you could. He could step out. Both of you could sit at the table, and only one of you could
I'll sit
vote.
at the table and I will vote.
Okay.
Perfect. That's a great solution.
So we have a unanimous approval of the employment contract. So at this point, we officially have a new CEO, Jan Pepper. And we welcome you to say a few words, if you like.
much for your support and your confidence. I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you and to getting to know your communities better and to working with all of you. I've gotten to know some of you over the last few months, and some of you have known for a few years. But we're all going to be doing great things together. And we have a unique opportunity here with this startup public agency. And I love working in the public power space. I love working on startups. So this is just a perfect combination. And based on my experience and the current market conditions, I'm confident that we can be very competitive. So we're going to go out there and really do it. As Dave noted, this is my dream job. I can't wait to jump in and get started working with all of you and have this be a great success. So thanks again, and I guess we'll be seeing a lot of each other.
All right. I feel like I should turn the gavel over to you.
Not yet.
The CEO still needs a board. That is what we are. Okay, so moving back to our agenda, I'd like to just report on a few items. Just get my notes here. So this has been the week of new CEO hires for Community Choice Energy. Santa Clara, the Silicon Valley Community Choice Energy operation. They in fact hired a CEO last evening, a gentleman by the name of Tom Habachi, if I recall. So our community is growing. We have two new leaders, which is very exciting. Wanted to let everyone know that we had the first meeting of our Community Advisory Council, which I had the opportunity to attend, and our staff will report later about the discussions there, but it was great to get that off the ground. I want to give a little shout out to Donna Colson, who has been very involved, very helpful with our efforts on looking at a couple of term sheets for financing arrangements with banks. And also, this is please take note of this, Donna serves on the board of Fiololi and has generously offered the use of Fiololi for a launch celebration party in October. And I believe we are looking at October
9th. We're looking at a Sunday afternoon, maybe a 4 to 6 o'clock type event, or 5 to 7, something in there while the weather's still nice. And of course, it will be open to all your city officials and dignitaries, as well as the board of supervisors and our other amazing political leadership here on the Peninsula. And so we have we can hold a lot of people. We have 3,000 this weekend. So I don't think we're going to have that many, but we'll do it and we'll be very nice. So it'll be my great honor to host you. And we're doing a lot of sustainability work there and things like that. So I think we're in the county. So I think it's a really nice, who wants to do this in a government place, right? So I think it'll be a really nice opportunity to have a very elegant and celebratory kickoff.
Right, it's a fantastic venue. Really appreciate it, Donna. And also, I figure that if this launch doesn't go well, there'll be a lot of people coming after us. We lost a place to hide out there. So there's two areas I wanted to flag where I need the board's assistance. One we brought up a couple of times, and we'll be reducing to writing, and you'll receive this tomorrow, an email about the issue of the interest of any city in having their entire city, all their residential, municipal, commercial accounts start out with 100% green energy. We've been working with PCEA, so the email you'll receive tomorrow will give you some indication of what the pricing delta will be. It's obviously an estimate, since we don't know pricing until a little later in the year. Would require a community to delay its launch to the second phase, which would be April, not October, to date, and to my knowledge, the only city that is interested, and I believe they're very interested, is the town of Peninsula Valley. But we will get this out to you in a written fashion, and we would ask that you, if you do have interest, to let us know by the 23rd of May. Now, secondly, there's a second option.
Question?
Yes.
I know for myself, even though I personally would be very interested, I would need to get input from my
Yeah.
fellow council members. And so wonder if there could be enough time in there where we're sure to have a council meeting.
Yeah, we're not, actually, the expectation is not that the council would take action, but that they're, but I do believe in talking with a colleague and your city manager, that there's a realistic probability it might go forward. That's what we need to know. And then we can get it, we can talk a little more about the exact details of when we would need that the council approval. But you wouldn't be able to get council approval in that short a timeline.
Right.
So it's really more the judgment of the board member, in consultation with their staff and their, I guess one colleague potentially under the Brown Act.
This would be for businesses and residential?
Everybody, yeah.
And this would be the default, but someone could still
It's
opt down.
Opt
if they
down,
wanted to.
right. Right, so, we've talked about this a couple times. Go ahead, Pradeep.
Just wanted to clarify, even when the city goes with 50% as default, they still have the option of some of the residents of the city signing up for 100%.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Similarly, for the cities which opt for 100%, would their citizens have the option to go 50%, not 100%?
Yeah, opt down, opt down.
So, it's just a starting default that we are thinking about, otherwise
switching
the
it. Mm-hmm.
offerings will be the same across the board.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, now I'm confused. So you're talking about, you want interest from the city and the city-owned facilities?
No, I'm gonna get to that next, I'm sorry, that's a different inquiry.
Okay,
So this is the, should a city, like we'll just take the Tola Valley where there's interest. If the council, so desires, they can make the decision that all their residents and the few businesses that are in Tola Valley, when we launch the service, every one of them would be 100% green. And they would be paying a little more than they're paying now for that benefit. And then those customers could opt down, but not just the municipality, all the ratepayers in the geography.
It's essentially talking about the default if we don't hear from the customer. If we hear nothing.
No, I understand that. I think that we, as a city, I think we could probably get buy-in to have the city.
Yeah, I'm going to turn to that one next.
By the 23rd, but I think that, I don't know that as a community we'd be ready to do that by the 23rd. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's whether, in your judgment, you think that that's something that realistically your community would find acceptable. To date, we've heard from Tola Valley that that's not seem to be what interest elsewhere.
No, I mean, I'd love to commit us to it, but I know we're going to need more discussion on that. So.
Okay. And then the second question goes to the point you asked about, which is, does the city's municipal accounts want to start out as 100% green? Now, the city, like any other ratepayer, can make the decision to select 100% green during the enrollment process, right? Just like any one of us in this room, we will have a period of time to either stay with the default or opt out to PG&E or opt out to 100%. So the same rules would apply to a city. But for planning purposes, we're trying to get some sense for whether the city municipal accounts want to go in a 100% green direction by June 3rd. Again, this is not like a commitment, it's not like a council action, it's just basically, some level, trying to get some gauge of the level of interest to move in that direction. So we will send out a separate email on that, so not to conflate these two concepts, because they do, unless you are very careful in how you describe them. Okay. And then the final point I just wanted to bring everyone up to date on is the existing community choice energy entities are convening an all-day strategy session on the exit fee, the PCEA fee, which of course we will participate in. Pradeep Gupta has been tracking that and will participate, and I believe our new CEO will be available to attend as well. So that issue, as we all know, is of paramount importance, and all the people who have been tracking this and thinking hard about it from the PCEA industry we'll be getting together on May 23rd, I think it is, to think about how, as a new industry, we want to deal with it. So we'll get a report out on that after that meeting. Okay, so those are a couple of remarks that I wanted to share, and we can now turn to some updates on our work over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to start with a presentation by Noble, who, as everyone knows, is our new data management firm. So I will ask them to introduce themselves. And
if I could, I'm going to just share a little bit as kind of a point of introduction, and also share with you that they have flown up from San Diego, and in turn have to catch a flight back. And so we just want to make sure that we're cognizant of the time for them to make their presentation, and in turn, if you have some questions for them, we could look into those if for some reason we're running out of time. But anyways.
Our flight is delayed, so we're okay.
Great news.
We got lots of hotels.
So this is Drake, and Drake brought the team with him, which includes 2 Pauls and then also Tony. And so I think he'll be able to introduce them and their roles and responsibilities here. But I'm going to turn it over to Drake now.
Good evening, board members. Drake Welch, Vice President of Customer Care of Noble America's Energy Solutions. I have, my role here is I have executive oversight in the CCA group within Noble Solutions is kind of my baby. Back to when Kings River, San Joaquin Valley Power Authority tried to launch. So that's my involvement. I'll introduce Tony Choi here. He's our Director of CCA Services. He'll be responsible for your relationship around after launch. Paul Soko is our Implementation Manager. He's responsible for implementation. Paul Sandra Yepes is our Director of IT. He's responsible for the systems and implementation of those systems. So I'll give you a quick overview of who we are. Noble America's Energy Solutions, formerly Sempra Energy Solutions. For those of you familiar with the parent company of San Diego Gas and Electric, we are a top 5 retail electric service provider nationally. What is a retail electric service provider? We procure energy on behalf of individual end-use customers. In Noble's case, it is just large commercial and industrial. It's akin to a CCA, providing third-party supply at the individual level. We have, in that role, we have over 95,000 meters with a peak load of 7,000 megawatts, about $2.1 billion in annual invoicing, and we're inactive in all restructured states. A restructured state allows individuals to buy energy from an end-use customer. You will hear direct access in California. Direct access customers, those are the customers that have previously bought from third-party suppliers. We are the largest electric service provider in California. We provide, more relevant to this discussion, we decided in the CCA space to be services only. We provide the set of services we'll go into a bit later. For all active CCAs, Marin Clean Energy, Sonoma Clean Power, Lancaster Choice Energy, and now as of May 2nd, Clean Power San Francisco, Clean Power SF. They have a combined active meters of about 440 meters. After they're all fully launched, they'll be at about 750,000. So adding your accounts, that gets us to about 1 million in California. That'll, in the next year or so, will be active. We have been around since the beginning of California's restructuring, long collaborative relationship with California Public Utilities Commission and the three investor-owned utilities, Pacific Gas and Electric, SoCal Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric. We were part of the teams and stakeholders that crafted regulations and protocols in this energy market. We still believe we are the only ISO 9001-2008 certified electric service provider nationwide. ISO 9001-2008 is an international quality standard. We're very proud of that certification. And we're headquartered in sunny San Diego, and it looks like we'll get there potentially after midnight tonight. Some more about us. We talked about our history back to the restructuring of California. Again, very collaborative and substantial working relationship with PG&E. We are highly integrated with PG&E systems and data. We understand, appreciate all of their systems, processes, nuances, any legacy system limitations or data limitations. PG&E often looks to us to partner with them both on the direct access and on the CCA side for system changes, system enhancements, to do those testing and to do some beta testing. And because of our relationship, we have a truncated certification, which is critical for your launch with your aggressive timelines. Please interrupt me with questions if you come up with any. Our processes in major buckets, they're not as linear as this look, but we had 2 days to put something together, and here it is. Electronic data interchange, we'll get into that, just simply a data protocol. We obviously will be doing the billing on your behalf. We'll talk about what that means. Southern quality meter data, systems, customer information systems, all the reporting, and probably a hot topic that we'll discuss is customer call center. So electronic data interchange. When you become a CCA, you now need to communicate with utilities electronically. They use a protocol that is very old, 1960, so very old from a technology standpoint. It's just an exchange protocol. It's in all major industry, airlines, transportation, banking, healthcare, energy. Within the energy transaction set, they have enrollments. So you have two sets of enrollments in the CCA world. You'll have a mass enrollment, in which you'll have, it sounds like 3 phases currently. You'll have where you just, PG&E and Noble will work together to reconcile a major list and then spreadsheets and those types of things. Outside of those, you'll have individual enrollments where you'll have to communicate electronically with the utility as people move in, move out, those types of things. There are usage files that PG&E will send to us. There are billing files that we will send to PG&E. There are account maintenance files, any relevant information on the utility account that will be sent to us. When a customer pays, we get the monies go to your bank, and we get banking addenda with information on that electronically. And then there's a number of in the processes, a number of reconciliations and validations that are transacted electronically. We process over 13 million EDI transactions, and we have a 100% success rate of processing those EDI files. Billing administration. So this is a keynote for all of you to understand. PG&E presents a consolidated bill. They will bill on PCE's behalf. They have a bill that will include their PG&E's transmission distribution charges. There will also be at least one line item, depending on how you structure your rates, with your charges on their invoice. The PCE's generation charges must be sent to PG&E within 3 days of the meter read to be included on the current month's bill. So how does it work? A meter reader will walk around, the account is active and enrolled. A meter reader will walk around, get your meter reads. PG&E will send Noble their usage file, again, a usage file 810. Noble will run it against the rating engine, calc charges, send those charges back to the utility. The utility will then validate and send to us that they received those charges. They'll also then send to us when they actually bill those charges. Customer pays the utility per the utility's payment terms. I think it's roughly 19 days for the payment terms. Once the PG&E receives the payment, the next day they send the dollars to your bank. The bank forwards us the cash application addenda so that we can apply those monies in the customer information system, so to make sure the accounts, that the aging on the account is accurate. And then ongoing account administration through that. We currently bill about 5 million accounts per year. Now that's counting a single account 12 times because they're monthly bills. And we have a success rate of 99.994%, which isn't quite at a Six Sigma number, but we're shooting for that. Settlement quality meter data. This is a big role and a big risk from an operational perspective to Peninsula Clean Energy. California and Michigan are the only markets, of course we have to do things a little bit different out here, that report customer usage to the independent system operator. The California Independent System Operator is the group that settles and balances the electric market in California. These are, you report the loads, and these are your cost of goods sold volumes. It's the only industry I can think of where you self-report your volumes on the cost of goods sold ledger. And of course, California, it has tight timelines for accuracy to get the files accurate to them and get it timely. More information, that's more detail, but all non-interval usage reads have to be profiled. Sometimes they'll just be monthly numbers. You'll have to put it into hourly buckets. You have to loss adjust. There are losses in the system. Every time you hear a line above you and it's humming or there's heat, there's energy that's lost in the system. So you have to put in more units into the system than actually gets to your end-use customers' meters. So we have to adjust for that. And then every hour, you aggregate up the usage and report to the CalISO, and that's how they settle your account. Customer information system, we have a billing system that's highly integrated with our other systems that houses all our billing, payment, customer-specific account details and attributes. More importantly to this team, there is a customer relationship management system which sits on top of all of our systems. Any data that is on a system underneath it can be pushed or pulled from the CRM and made available to your staff, made available to the customer service representatives. It houses bill copies from PG&E. It houses all the interactions with customers. You can report off it. If you're one of those folks that can self-serve, you can do all kinds of reporting off it. You can set up dashboards. It has workflows where you can communicate and put action items for folks and have them follow up with everybody. Reporting. Basically, any data that's in any of our systems can be reported at any frequency. And just to list a couple of common reports that we have canned, an aging report, all your customers, if they're past due or all the receivables. Collections, an invoice summary that shows all the invoices, a snapshot that shows all of your accounts at a point in time and all the meter attributes. I won't go into all the details there. Then also, we perform a qualified reporting entity services if and when you become either build or control small renewable generation. We take the metered usage, put it into a system that California has called Regis, and it spits out renewable energy credits on the other side, which you utilize in your renewable portfolio standard compliance. Call center. Obviously, with the only group providing these sets of services, we're only an operational CCA call center. We have an 89% customer satisfaction based on customer surveys. There's a couple of benchmarks that we could find in California. SoCal Edison, as part of their rate case, is at 74% in the last 2 years as part of our rate case process. The SFPUC water, power, and sewer is 85% for the last 2 years we could find. The call center has done 15 successful mass enrollments over the four operating CCAs. We have a flexible and dynamic call routing structure. It's a bit of a hybrid. The call out allocations, Noble Solutions operational staff will handle a subset of calls, and these are all flexible lines that we're going to work together to figure out what is best to meet your customers' needs and your needs. So we typically take the elevated and complex calls, the folks that are actually into the data and doing the billing and those things. There's a third-party traditional call center located throughout Northern California. Typically takes a less complex calls, call overflow and after hours. We provide the training and quality control and oversight. And then the PCEA organization could take all or a subset of the calls as well, and we're very flexible along those lines. Here's a bit of just to show the customer transactions, and so the customer in the top left corner, we have internet functionality. You can go, we put an iframe onto your website. They can check the account status of the account. They can opt out through that iframe. They can enroll in 100% renewable through that iframe. We can put general information out there. And one of the points we're discussing is, do we allow people to enroll in the next phase or enroll in between phases and things like that. So there's all kinds of functionality that we can put through that iframe on your website. Sir?
Yeah, you mentioned website. Does that mean it's not smartphone optimized? Or?
Yes, it can.
So the iframe basically is embedded on the PCE website. So as long as the PCE website is capable of handling mobile mobile devices, it will interact with it.
I assume we're going to do that.
As you can see, if you ask questions, my layer of understanding is here. So that's why I brought the team. There's an interactive voice response system for automated self-service through calls. They can get account status opt-out. Again, we're working through exactly what that means for your customer. Just give you a little overview of the types of functionality that can be there. Call routing, there's a virtual queue. So if the calls build up, it'll tell them your call is roughly 15 minutes. Gives them the, yes?
I'm just curious, do you have a company you're working with on the IVR piece?
Yes, company by answering that, correct? So the virtual queue, it can tell them we can tell them to schedule a call. We say we'll call you. We can call you. You can stay on the line. We can call you back in 15 minutes. We can call you back at a scheduled time, like 4:30 in the afternoon or whenever you're available. That system also routes calls to individual CSRs. AnswerNet, again, is the third party that just mentioned that has both the IVR and the Northern California presence. They answer calls, and then Noble Solutions live agents also answer the more complex and technical and escalated calls as well. And then I'll turn this over to Paul Sandriepes, which is the implementation timeline. He may not be able to read it, so.
I don't like that one. Good evening. It's great to be here. I am very excited. It's always nice to see CCA start to form and have such great support from the political bodies that are there. When we first responded to the RFQ for the actual project, but one of the things that was asked of us was, can we do this in 5 months? And I scratched my head and I thought, we want to. But yes, we can. It's a very, very aggressive time frame. Typically, we like about a 7-month time frame. 5 months is doable as long as all the pieces fall together. And so what I was asked to do is come and explain 7 months in 5 minutes. And so that is in front of you. When you take a look at it, each of the bar graphs sort of constitute or speak to a specific task or a specific function. And I'm not going to go through all of them unless you really want me to. The things in red, you can see some red fonts, those are things where we are dependent on your staff to answer and or approve, whether it be scripting, whether it be QAs, whether it be testing the systems that we're putting into place for you. It says that we started at 5.1. We missed that target just a bit, but we have met with staff. We have gone over sort of the implementation plan as we see it, and all of the items that are on there, they are aware of. We are waiting for their response. Most of the things that we are presenting to staff for responses, like I said, are scripts or templates. So when we talk about the IVR, again, it's not our first rodeo, so we've done this several times. And we've learned some things over the course of the years of what works well and what doesn't work well. So we provided a template in terms of how that tree should work. You know, push 1 for this, push 2 for that. I know it sounds a little sort of silly, but it is the first contact that your customers will have. And so we want to make it an experience that doesn't have them sitting on the phone for 5 minutes trying to find out which prompt to push. And then we also give you sort of the basic scripting. You can fill in the actual program names and those types of things. But hopefully what we put together for you, both from a FAQ perspective, and when I looked at your FAQs online, they're almost identical. I can almost rip it off and put them in. So I think you guys are well ahead of sort of that learning curve. Other than that, you take a look at the actual when is a critical date. The first notices are going out on July 1st. So we talk about a 10-1 implementation time frame, like we've got a lot of time. Notices go out July 1st. That means that everything from a system perspective needs to be in place. So that technically doesn't give me 5 months, it gives me 2. So a little bit about our team. We've got about 22 people fully under my team for developers, business analysts, application administrators. So we have a lot of resources to pull from, but it's still going to be sort of a heavy lift. I'm not going to go read through all of it because it's a little tiny font. They have specific questions on implementations, systems. I heard something about the IVR, heard something about the iframes and that are embedded into websites. So I heard the answer, and I'm just going to give a little couch back on it. Depending on the mobile device that you use, and depending on what system you're what application you're using to cruise the internet, and those types of things render differently. So is it a Windows app? Is it a non-Windows app? Is it this version? Is it most? All of that depends on a rendering. What we try to do is try to work with your internet team and match what they are coding to. So if your website is not mobile ready or active, then the iframe probably won't be either, because it does embed itself within that framework. Yes?
Just because I can't see font that small, and anything that denotes PCE action, I want to make sure I'm aware of. Can you just highlight those points?
Sure. Can you read? I left my glasses over there. So again, the first thing that we have on there is because you want to program systems, the IVR and training for the CSRs, we're looking for scripting approval for the training material, for the IVR, as well as for the frequently asked questions, because that sort of fits into our training. So that's the first one. The second item that we have on there, she's really going to test me, is for, help me, sorry, what was that saying? Oh, thank goodness, it's the iframe design. So again, we have the template, the iframe embeds itself into your website. Again, it's very simple transactions that we are asking for. So if they're opting up into the program or down into the program, it just sort of talks about the navigation. There are certain data elements that are critical for us to process the order, so you don't get to choose those. Primarily, it's enter your account number, enter your name, enter your zip code, those kinds of things, and the actual option that you want to do. The reason why there's some activity in there is terms and conditions. You may have terms and conditions for those who are opting to the 100% renewal of the program. You might have a residency stay requirement, and if they don't stay within a year, maybe there's a fee to leave, those kinds of things. In addition to that, there may be some terms and conditions that if a person is opting out after the opt-out window within the actual framework of the legislation, then they have a residence period to stay with the utility if they opt out after the fact. So some of those terms and conditions you want to make sure your customer is aware of, so they're making informed choices. And so some of that is just to approve that look and that feel of that iframe. Oh my goodness. And then we have the IVR, again, it's sort of testing of the IVR after we program it. We want you or your staff to actually test it to make sure that the decisions and the choices that we made are actually correct, and that experience that we think on paper actually transcends to actually being on the phone. The next one on there is the print vendor. All kinds of notices will going out to your customer. You have to notice the customer twice before they switch and twice after they switch. So we work with your print vendor, your choice, and what we do is we work on file for you. There's letters, confirmation letters that you have to approve, verbiage you need to approve. When we send letters out, there are some options. Confirmation letters for somebody opting out of your program isn't required by law, but maybe it's something you want to do so a customer feels confident that when they place the order, they got something tangible that said they got my opt-out. Other than that, there is the EDI certification. What the involvement is for EDI certification, Drake spoke a lot about EDI, and again, it's hundreds of thousands of millions of transactions will go back and forth as you start to ramp up. The EDI certification simply is fill out this form that allows us the authority to talk to PG&E, and that designates us as your back office provider. And at that point, they will talk. There were some questions about customer confidentiality of information, and that's part of it. No one is allowed access to this information unless you are part of the CCA or an agent of. So that just designates us as an agent of. And we have already talked to PG&E. I think Drake mentioned it. The EDI certification process typically takes about 2.5 months to 3 months, depending on how savvy your EDI department is. We skipped that entire process. If we had to go through that testing process, this time frame would almost be impossible. So we do a connectivity testing, which takes about actually an hour after everything's put into place. PG&E does take a little time to get us into the system, even though we're already there. So the certification testing will take, or communication testing will take about 2 to 3 days. And then the second part of that is EDI testing with your bank. So we need the involvement of your staff to introduce us to your banking institution. So they, again, will talk to us and will interact with us. Other than that, there is a program rates. We are programming rates. I think we have it designated right in the August timeframe. First bills don't go out until after October, so we have some time on that. The sooner you have your rates, though, identified, the better, because we're training CSRs and people are calling July 1. So if they call, one of their first questions is, how much is this going to cost? Is it cheaper? Or what rates does it look like? What is the comparison? And if you don't have those answers, it just opens up more questions. So, yes, sir.
Question on that: if the website is being constructed before that, and we've got customers coming to the site, but we don't have the rates set up yet, do they not choose a rate plan when they're opting in, or when they're making that decision about 100% versus 50? They don't know what the rates are yet.
All good questions. So typically the customers don't select their own rate, but the CCAs will sort of map a corresponding rate to the current utility rate. And so they are typically enrolled into that comparative rate.
But if they wanted to switch, they'd have to wait until later.
So switch rates or switch to the CCA?
Switch rates.
Switch rates, and typically the rates are designed to be most beneficial for the customer. So you may have specific rates. I also heard conversation about EV rates and those kinds of things. You have a lot of flexibility and a lot of creativity that you can utilize based on what your customer's population usage of power. So if the question is, as the website's being built, and they don't have the rate, I think if you have enough information to know if you're competitive, and I think that's helpful. You're not going to be 5 times more, so you're competitive. And competitive, you can further explain that to say that it is, meet or beat, whatever that model is for you. And I think sometimes that is enough for a customer to say, oh, great, as long as they're competitive and I'm not paying, more. When you get to the 100% renewable rate, it's always nice to have that really finely defined, because people want to be very, aware of their carbon footprint, but they also have budgets to live within. And that is probably the biggest question that the phone center will get at those times is, okay, if the renewable sounds great, what does that mean? And to be able to explain that and to have maybe even sort of a calc tool for us to take a look at their usage to say this is what it would look like if you were, also goes a very long way. A lot of that takes a lot of groundwork and framework for us to be able to calculate. So the sooner you have the information, the better. I don't want you guys to get the impression that we as a community don't need to know what these prices are, these impacts until August. That's sort of the drop dead date. That's when I need it, or else we're not going to be able to help customers. The sooner is always the better for rates.
I just want to clarify. The program the rates is mainly on our side. Drake talked about our CIS system. The rates, we won't be programming them until August. However, with notices going out beginning of July, and I've seen the draft letters notices going out. There is a cost comparison on there, so the rates, and the rate setting is going to be beginning of June, I believe. So hopefully well before July when the first notices go out, the majority of the rate structure is going to be there. The savings, if any, are going to be included or known. And then so the programming of the rates that we're doing is the really individual technical pieces of your the charges for your default and 100% renewable for the E1 rate, the ETOU rate, and commercial rates, all of the ones that Paul was describing as being equivalent to the PG&E rate structure. those will be, and the actual factors for those will be programmed into our CIS at that time.
Right, the date to concentrate on is that 7/1 date, 2 months. So that's when customers are going to get noticed and customers are going to call. We'd like to be prepared to answer those questions. Yes?
I'll go back to my earlier question. It generated a couple more by me. I think you said July 1 is the date where our software developer has to be able to drop in its package into your framework.
It's the converse.
Okay.
So yeah, we drop our iframe into your website.
So that'll be around the 1st of July.
That's when it has to be up and running. I would like this, again, the sooner the better. Our iframes are already built, right? So it is now just the customization, putting in your names, your program names, and getting approval from your staff on the workability. So there's two pieces. There's the approval from just a operational perspective, and then there's the technical piece. And staff already knows that we need to know who on our IT side do we need to talk to from an internet for your website perspective. So
it's sort of time critical. And I don't know the answer to this question. I'm just talking out loud.
Sure.
If we decide we want to optimize for smartphones and if we want to have a separate app, we need to be working on that.
That's them, not us. Well, we'll work in tandem.
You work in tandem,
certainly.
but you need it by a certain date.
Certainly. And again, what I would suggest is with the 2 months that you have, use what you have currently, support what you have currently, and when you want to expand, call that phase 2. So if you try to squeeze too much in the front end, you run the risk of none of it working versus having what you do have working well, and having something available for your customer base. But we do, our staff can. It typically isn't our side where the bottleneck is. It's typically dealing with your vendors and those kinds of things, and working into their schedules. The only other thing that I think was on there was, what is that? It's just it's the reporting. There you go. It's my favorite. Again, Jake talked a little bit about the reporting. I should put my glasses on. About the reporting. Some of that reporting is self-serve for your staff. Some of that reporting just is by subscription. Drake mentioned a few of them. We have probably around 20 canned reports that we think are meaningful for your staff and for you as the board. And it covers the range of, like Drake said, anything from aging to activity to transactions to interactions with the actual customer. And it goes down to as much granularity as you'd like to see. That was my spiel. Any other questions? Yes?
So you mentioned that you have to notify this might be a question for staff too, so we have to notify the ratepayer 2 days before, or twice before and twice afterwards, so they can't be switching their rates like 3 times a day or something like that, right?
So, right, so from a rate perspective, it's typically a defaulted rate to that customer. So when you enroll into the program or when you're noticed, that rate selection, at least I haven't seen anybody design your own program that allows customers to select various rates. Again, if that's how you'd like to design it, we can definitely modify our processes. But typically our processes as they stand now is staff will map PG&E's rate to your current offered rate, and that will happen automatically. The customer doesn't actually have that choice currently. Because the rate that they are mapped to tends to be the rate that is most beneficial for them and their usage. There becomes some interesting conversations, and probably at the forum when we start talking about, and I heard time of use, when you start having time of use meters and shifting usage, sometimes that is beneficial for the customer if they can, depending on how you're purchasing your power, and if it is on that shifting from a time of use perspective saves you guys dollars.
I just got lost because you gave me more information. So all I want to know is if the ratepayer goes online and says, I want to go to 100% and I want to go down to the PG&E or whatever, how often can they do that?
So the last we consider the last transaction the transaction that the customer prefers. So if the customer goes online and says, hey, I want to opt up, and then the next day they say, now I want to opt down, you have to remember that they really haven't done anything yet. It was an interest to move to the 100% renewable in October. So the first notices will go out in July, the second notice will go out in August. So on August 15th, if they say, no, I want to drop down, we will say, okay, we'll cancel the opt-out, because it really hasn't been processed yet. Nothing
So-
gets processed until October 1. We will then say, okay, great, they made a mistake. We'll try to reach out to the customer. We've done this, like Drake said, 15 times. That very rarely happens. I actually can't recall anybody opting out in around within the first 2 months period. Go ahead.
So is it they get to opt in? I mean, they get to choose once a year. Is that how we're doing it?
Okay, so the rule, the legislative rule says that if a customer is, remember, a customer is automatically enrolled in your program. They do absolutely nothing, and they're enrolled into your program. The earlier conversation is what is their default? Is their default the non 100% renewable or the renewable? So they're automatically into the program, so they do nothing. So if I'm going to try to answer your question, if they say I don't want to be part of it, I want to be part of PG&E, they can opt out at any time within that framework of 2 months before and or 2 months after, with no harm, no foul in terms of being caught in the residency rule that PG&E has. It's written legislation. If you opt out outside of that window, you are now stuck with you. Sorry, not stuck. Free disclosure, I come from the utility. I was there for a number of years, not PG&E, but so you are, the residency requirement with the utility is for a year. So once you opt out outside of that window, you must stay with the utility for 1 year. So if within that window, if you decide that you want to opt out, you go back to the utility. You can come back at any time you want to, because you've opted out within the window. So that timing is really important. Now, you mentioned opting in and out and up and down within the window. You can do that as many times as you'd like, but remember the window really doesn't happen until October 1. No power is changing till October. And then what happens is each transaction that you ask for is effective at your next meter read date. So if your meter is read on October 15th, that's when you switch. You are now active on October 15th. If you want to opt up into the program, you can, but typically we don't say it's effective until the next meter read date, because we want to make sure that the billing, it makes sense to the customer, and the rates are typically different. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, okay. And then the data that's transferred between your database and PG&E, how often does that happen? Is that once a day or every minute?
Sure. All right. So so what happens? How do customers switch? So Drake sort of mentioned mass enrollment. Mass enrollment is after you guys get a list from PG&E that says here's everyone in your territory that is eligible. You select your first phase, and you guys will select the first phase. That first phase, those people get noticed. Once they're noticed, there's that opt-out period. We then tell PG&E, of this major list that you gave us, we're going to be enrolling, pick the number, 70,000 accounts, whatever it is. We tell PG&E those are the accounts that we're going to enroll. We take out all the people who've opted out, who've called us within that opt-out window to opt out. We tell PG&E to remove those people. They then update their systems to set the flag for CCA, and then come October, I think it's the first week or the third week of October, they then send us a mass enrollment file that has the 70,000 or the 68,000 customers that are into your program, and they send a response to us which updates our system with all of the sort of the data elements for PG&E. The full question of how often does PG&E and Noble exchange data, depending on the transaction set, we typically exchange a transaction set. Drake talked a little bit about it, the enrollment, the billing, the usage. There are different transaction sets that go through. They typically go out once a day for each individual transaction set at different times. For the rule for PG&E, if I wanted to send them a drop that the customer wants to go back to them, I can send them 15 transactions a day, 100 transactions a day. They will only process up to 4 o'clock. Does that make sense? This question? Nope? Yes?
This is beyond the...
I didn't know you guys liked the details so much. I would have got different slides.
So I'm going to go a little broader than
okay.
that. One of the things I would like to consider, the board would consider in the future, the CEO, is that the customer of PCE should be informed customer. Like, they should be able to see what they used last month, what they used last year, how are they doing last week, etc., in a graphical form. And if you want to include that information in our website, PCE website, but the data is going to be coming from you in order to provide those graphical charts. Is that part of the same iframe drop-in what you mentioned, or is that something else?
Yeah, so currently the iframe is just sort of that enrollment iframe. We are actually having conversations. We have a project that's on our roadmap for exploring how can we make customer data available not only to you guys, but also to the customer, make that external. And some of it is usage information, payment information, those kinds of things. So it's definitely on our roadmap to explore. It's definitely not something difficult. The question now is what, let's put some thought and some methodology to what do we think a customer is interested in? And do we expect that those charges that are, let's say usage, what does my usage look like? Is it total usage that all we're looking for? Or do we really want to look at what kind of usage am I using throughout the day? So some of that, and those are important distinctions, because one is an aggregate, which is very easy to say, this is the power I used in January, versus, because that's just one number for 1 month, versus what was the power consumption that I used in a 24-hour period over a course of a month. Now you've got several thousand rows of data. Is that what you're looking for? And I think once we come up with those conclusions, we can come up with requirements, and we can offer it to you.
So when is that going to happen?
So let's get to July, and then I would love to have these conversations with you. I would tend to think if I were guessing, and if I would say in my time frame, what does that look like? Within a year, we should have some solid ideas of what that looks like.
I agree with Pradeep. I think that the person who's coming new to this, they want to know what's it in for them, other than being a good citizen. There'll be those people just say, I just want to do 100% renewable. And then there'll be those people who say, well, am I going to save any money here? Am I going to have the feel-good factor with saving money, or I wouldn't mind spending a little bit more money? So this helps the customer figure out which plan they want to choose.
Sure, so I agree.
And in the future, we also want to see, a year seems like a long time to have to figure out where they are going or where they want. They only get to choose once a year, so it's some way.
A couple points that yes, I agree 100%. That a customer is going to want to know what the impact is to move from one rate to another. That isn't necessarily contingent on a historical reference of how did I perform, but understood. Yeah, I tend to think that as we look at the amount of work that is before us, I'm always willing to take a look at how else we can enhance the customer's experience, and working in partnership I think is a great way. I think when we look at what customer interaction is happening today in all the CCAs that we participated in, that hasn't been one of the top things that customers have been interested in, but I can see that as things mature, and as your rates mature, and as savings may be realized by time of use shifting, I think all of that becomes very, very pertinent and important. Yes?
So you've rolled this out on several other CCAs.
Yep.
What changes have you done as you've learned from each one? And how flexible are you to implementing those changes?
So we learned a lot. I think I sort of mentioned with the IVR, making that experience sort of, there's a big push in the beginning to give the customer as much information as they can so they can make that strong decision and informed decision. So in the beginning, the IVR was I would say a little heavy in the verbiage and the scripting. Changing that and modifying it so it's you tell them where they can find more information, whether it be on your website or those types of things, but keeping the IVR sort of short and simple, I think is something that we learned and we implemented immediately. Typically, if we learn a lesson that we could do it better, we do it on the next time or immediately if we're in the middle of a phase.
You mean
so,
on the next time, what does that mean?
So as you're doing phases, in your next phase, that implementation will be done. Or we can try to do it within the phase, depending on volume. So you don't want to take your IVR down when you're getting 500 calls an hour, that type of thing. You want to wait till that call volume drops down, so you can actually make those changes and modifications. That was just one. Let me think of another one for you. When you actually switch customers, there are certain times that are very advantageous for you, and there are times that aren't so positive. And some of those would be, you never want to sort of do it in January, because they've got their December bill, and then in the December bill, it's the Christmas lights, the bills are higher anyway. And then when they look at their bill, why is my bill so high? They see your name and they go, oh, it's because they're more expensive. So learning how and when the seasonality of rates kick in to where you should switch your customers is very important, which is something that we as didn't pay too much attention to, but it's something that we always share very freely with all of the CCAs that come into our as clients. So you get the benefit of, again, those 15 phases being your first one. So it always gets easier, but again, I'll always say communities are different, And just because one community loved this doesn't mean another will, and that's why staff and involvement from you and your communities is so important. Customer outreach, I can't explain how important customer outreach is. So you don't want them to find out that they're part of a CCA because they wrote in their bill and the bill is high. You want them to know that they're joining a CCA and it's coming into fruition because there's a need and there's a want and there's a desire, because again, they are automatically enrolled in the program. You want to give them as much information as you can, so they don't feel as if they are being slighted or ignored. Yes?
Maybe we should probably make this one the last question.
Okay.
And then we'll let you guys go back home.
It had been brought to us as a suggestion before that we do research so that we find out the price sensitivity of our residents in terms of going 100% or 70 or what have you. In the work that you've been doing, it sounds like you have a lot of experience with this. Do you know of any research or data that we could use in determining in other communities what the price sensitivity was?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't. Anybody on the team? I heard, is 100% renewable cheaper? I have not seen a model where it's ever been cheaper. So it's typically always been, at least currently in today's market, if you're going 100% renewable, you're paying a premium because it is important to you as a community and or as an individual. So setting that realization, I think, is important, and understanding that, at least in today's market. What the price point is for your community, unfortunately, I don't know. I've never heard anybody say that their current electric bill is too low. So for example, I went to solar only, and it was not cheaper, and it was okay because I thought it was important. And if you have that permeates within your community, in some communities it does. People are really actively trying to make the environment a better place, and they're okay with paying a higher premium.
Looks like we have
Could I ask one last question?
We got time.
Make them short, because we got to bring some other people up.
This is very complex operation, as you know, as we know. As a board member, I feel obliged to ask this. Is there any independent audit of your operations that you would share with us?
Sure. We are, so Drake talks about the ISO 9000 certification, so that talks about controls. And so we have an independent person come back into our office to ensure that those controls are being followed and are repeatable, and it concentrates on the customer experience. So that's one. We are also audited by Ernst & Young as a third-party independent auditor for not only ourselves, as Drake mentioned, we are the largest ESP here in California. So that book of business and our systems and our controls, that third-party Ernst & Young audit is both from a systems technical perspective, where our systems, do we have passwords, access, those kinds of things, as well as from handling those controls of who actually gets access and so forth. So we are audited. We are audited every year. We are looking at getting additional audits for the CCA book of business. We're sort of in negotiations on when that's going to happen and what's involved in that. But we will share any of that information with you guys.
Thank you. Rick, I think that's
We also adhere to the decision 12-08-045, which discusses the privacy with regards to gas aggregators, CCAs, and also ESPs of residential and small commercial. That's done every 3 years, and we just performed audits for the 3 CCAs that were active between 2013 and 2015 recently.
We also filled in your staff of what that regulation and controls are, and so if you get or share any of that customer data, I was brought up, and I think it's very valid points. This data is private, it is protected, and we have all of those controls in place.
Rick has a question?
Yeah, I just want to underscore something that you said that I think is very important for us as a board, which is as you go through the process of evaluating how you want to slice and dice the data and restructure it in a new format to improve the presentation both for us as a board, your customer, and for the user. I think we need to think very carefully about what PG&E currently makes available to their customers, because you can go on your My Energy site and you can see the way what you use and compare it month to month and period to period in some hourly data. But we're doing something very different, which is we're giving people who are our customers, our the ability to make a choice to change the kind of energy that they use. And we need to work with you to creatively figure out how to slice and dice that data, to creatively present to them the information so that it will help them both make a decision about what they may want to do differently, but also see the impact that the PCE is having in terms of the change of that energy usage and what that impact is for us as a county. And I think that's extremely important for all of us, for our residents, and for the media to be able to republish that information so that other counties will adopt this form of energy management. And I want us to work closely with you to very carefully look at that data and think about how can we be most creative to present this in a way so it's most meaningful for our customers. And I think that's really important, and I think you've got a rich resource here because so many people are involved in the tech community, and we think about data all the time.
Data nuts, we're going to rule the world. Right? I was a nerd in high school, it was fine. Yes, and I think that's really important insight. I think, especially when you start publishing your successes, they are quantifiable. You can take a look at load, you can take a look at 100% renewable, and take the offset and the deltas to say, at the utility, this is what the footprint look like for your communities, and this is what it looks like now. And they're very tangible, meaningful results.
Just to follow up, I'm not sure how we best provide input to them on that.
Through staff.
Maybe Jan.
Yeah, it's something we could pick up
think
with
about that, but I think how we contribute to your, add sort of customer feedback to you, and I mean, we've got a sort of self-interest here. We want you to pull all the resources you can to make that be the most effective presentation, certainly better than what PG&E provides. And I'm not downgrading PG&E, I mean, we're something new, and we want to show an improvement with that new stage that we're offering.
Very good. Good point, excellent point that we're going to keep track of, and we'll talk about it some more. All right, thanks again for being here and making a presentation on short notice.
Well, most definitely, invite us back. We have a lot more to talk about if you guys are the details.
Thank you. So, Ms. Regenmeyer, turn it over to you for the finance presentation.
Yeah, we're ready to move on to the next item on tonight's agenda, and I'm going to just make basically a brief introduction here in regard to kind of the finance presentation, and then I'm going to turn this over to Mike Bolanger from our office. But essentially, this past week, the Office of Sustainability was before the Board of Supervisors to ask for additional monies relative to Phase 3 and Phase 4 of the launching of Peninsula Clean Energy. And so a little bit of background, more than a year or so ago, we were before the board and asked for our first phase of $300,000, which was granted, and then about 6 months later, we went before the board and an additional $800,000 for Phase 2 was granted, and then what we were essentially asking this past Tuesday was for Phase 3, and then we also, during the last number of months, have really worked out and gotten into the details of being and providing, making sure that we have a successful launch. And with that, estimated the monies that were going to be necessary to get this to a point where there would be a positive cash flow into 2017. So with that, I'm going to kind of now turn that presentation over to Mike Bolander, and he has a few slides to share with you tonight relative to this past Tuesday's efforts.
Good evening, board members. It's nice to be back here talking to you tonight. Like Jim mentioned, we're going to be talking to you about the budget. And I view the budget as a communication tool, so tonight I'm going to try and tell the story of your budget, past, present, and future. So in late 2014, the County Board of Supervisors committed to support the Peninsula Clean Energy startup with an initial startup loan of $1.5 million. The slide before you represents the original budget that was proposed and the details of the expenses for each of the 3 phases. So So as Jim mentioned, we are currently in phase 3, and on Tuesday, May the 10th, the County Board of Supervisors appropriated the final $400,000 of that initial $1.5 million loan. This slide represents how much we have spent in support of Peninsula Clean Energy as of February 29th, 2016. This is approximately $400,000. We chose February 29th as that represents the end of phase 2 and the beginning of phase 3. Phase 3. We do have a number of contracts in place that will extend from phase 2 through the end of phase 4, and that's represented by the encumbrances column on the chart. So if we take the actuals as of February 29th and add the contract encumbrances, you can see that the total committed to Peninsula Clean Energy is about $1.07 million, just shy of the $1.1 million that has been allocated to date. As Jim mentioned earlier, a 4th phase was added, and the table before you represents the updated budget with the phase 1 estimated costs. I want to point out one minor change in phase 3. It was modified slightly to account for the hiring of a staff person to focus solely on the Peninsula Clean Energy related activities. So what we did is took funding from the internal planning and reallocated it to the staffing costs, so there is no increase in the total budget in phase 3. Phase 4 costs will focus primarily on the operating costs associated with Peninsula Clean Energy. We have budgeted $100,000 for expanded marketing efforts during the customer enrollment period. Under the staffing line, we budgeted $710,800, and that represents 5 permanent employees of Peninsula Clean Energy. Those are the Chief Executive Officer, a financial manager, a marketing director, an office manager, and a program manager. The final line, the $670,000, represents the cost for leasing office space, payments for debt service, and other miscellaneous costs. And that's the total of $1.48 million that the County Board of Supervisors approved for the Office of Sustainability's 16-17 budget to help support operation costs for the Peninsula Clean Energy. Maybe I'll just take a brief pause and ask if you have any questions on the budget before I talk about finance.
Maybe you're going to get to this. At what point does PCEA need to be paid?
That's a good question. We are in the process of drafting a loan agreement, a repayment document. We're working with counsel on that. That's yet to be determined. We plan on coming back to the PCE board sometime in the future with that agreement, as well as our board of supervisors.
Mike, isn't it the working assumption that it's a 3-year repayment?
Correct, Supervisor Klein. That was the initial repayment period. And we need to iron out some of the other details, such as interest, or if it'll be 0 interest or a slight interest rate for the repayment.
One question I had, was any understanding with the Board of Supervisors made on this account regarding the time limit of repayment of this loan to PCE?
Not, no, there's no kind of express requirement. Just two was reasonable. Very easy.
If I may add just one kind of behind the scenes in the pro forma that we had worked with PEA on was relative to a repayment for the 3-year period.
That is what was put out in the material that was pitched to our councils and in the public sessions, but there was never any specific term.
No.
That's correct, and also the pro forma only accounted for the $1.5 million initial loan that the county gave. It did not account for this additional 1.48. However, with this additional 1.48, that reduces the financing that we will do from the financial institution that we're going to be seeking, and which I'll talk about. So you'll save interest on that as well. So on behalf of the Peninsula Clean Energy, a group of county staff has been working with a number of banking institutions. We reached out to 6 banks, and those are Barclays, KeyBank, River City, Union Bank, Bridge Bank, and Liberty Bank to determine their interest in providing us with a term sheet for a $12 million loan to help with further operation costs of the PCE, as well as to establish a reserve fund in support of our power purchase agreements, provide the working capital for the pre-revenue collection phase, also to account for the seasonal differences in cash flows, and for deposits that are required by the California Independent Service Operators and the California Public Utilities. So of the 6 banks, we did receive 3 term sheets. We believe now we have their best and final offer. And unfortunately, one of the banks could not get over our collateral requirement. For the $12 million, they required a full collateral for the full loan, and we were only authorized for up to $6 million. So essentially, we'll have 2 banks to bring to you in the near future, unless we can work out another agreement with a third bank. Yes, sir.
Why'd you pick those 6 banks? Obviously, there's a bunch of banks that come to my mind, probably other people's mind that aren't on the list that you reached out to, but maybe they're not applicable for this category. What is the, should we reach out to more at this stage?
Well, at this stage, it may be too late. We do need to have funding in place relatively soon and to go through. And we reached out, I would say, a good 3 months or so ago, and it took quite some time for banks to get back to us. This is a relatively new concept for them, so there's a lot of learning on their end and a lot of back and forth between us and those banks. These banks were identified. River City was identified as one that provided financing for marine clean energy, and so we reached out to them first. And the other banks were just local or regional banks that we've had working relationships and or were recommended to us by the county's financial advisor to pursue. As I stated, within the term sheets, most have indicated a collateral of either 100%. We were only authorized up to 50% of the loan. And so that is what we had requested and were approved for to enter into negotiations moving forward from our local supervisors. As I stated earlier, we are going to be working very closely with council to work out payment terms, and we hope to bring that back in the near future. We'll probably have 2 different loan agreements, one for the collateral agreement of the $6 million, and then the second agreement will be for the $2.98 million county loan for the operational costs. To enter into negotiations with. That's my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Last questions for Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we talking about taking out the entire $12 million loan from one bank or dividing the loan between?
The current structure would be $12 million from one single bank. And it would be a staggered draw where we would initially draw $5 million and then $5 million I think in July 1 would be the first draw, and then the remaining $7 million sometime in December. Yes.
We looked into either in addition to that or in lieu of part of it, just having a line of credit, so we know there's capital that's out there that we can draw on if we need to, but we don't necessarily need to draw on it.
Part of the we had asked the banks to provide a conventional loan and also a revolving line of credit option, and so you'll see that in the options we present to this board.
And the loan is signed only by Peninsula Clean Energy, or is it a joint loan signed by county and?
No, sir, that's your debt, not ours.
They're loaning us the collateral.
Well, thank you.
I know.
All right. So that gives you a kind of a snapshot of the financial planning, and the team will come back with more detail on that, and particularly the credit terms shortly. Mr. Eggemeyer, you'll want to give us your staff report on other matters?
Yeah, we have a number of items to share with you tonight under the number 5 county staff report. I'm going to lead off first by sharing with you this past Monday we had our 3rd meeting with PG&E staff. Staff comes down from up north or up in Marin County. They are the group that deals with CCAs. And so it was a very productive meeting. We met in the morning and then had lunch with them. And in turn, also Noble, the 2 Pauls, and then another gentleman by the name of Sam came up from San Diego and joined us for the morning meeting and lunch. And then in the afternoon, we met with Noble. And and then when we returned, we specifically were working with Noble. And remember, Paul, he's a very quick speaker. So we had 2.5 hours of that. Okay, just to kind of give you, and it was an excellent meeting, I got to say. They were well prepared, brought in exactly what we needed to do, and they kind of teamed back and forth, the 2 Pauls, and so very productive. We know what we need to do. He shared that with us, or with you tonight, and in turn, we're already on that and working on all those red highlighted items associated with what Noble needs and what we need to do in regards to hitting that launch date. So I wanted to share that with you. So we're off and running. The other item this past week that we've been working on is with outside counsel and counsel relative to our ESP and essentially fine-tuning our contract that and getting into the specific details that we will now then start to discuss with our energy service providers, the short list that we have. So we'll be working on that here maybe tomorrow or early next week and getting that out.
The agreements are done as of this afternoon.
Okay.
And so we're going to circulate them to the 3 shortlisted energy service providers, and then the negotiations will commence in earnest.
Right. So I have a couple other items, but I'm going to turn this over to Kirsten, who's going to speak a little bit about the Community Advisory Committee meeting last week, and in turn to some updates on our outreach efforts.
Hi, members of the board. I'm Kirsten Pringle with the Office of Sustainability. So just a brief update on our marketing and outreach. We will be giving a full presentation, updates on how that's going. Circle Point will be giving that at your next meeting. So I'm just going to keep this very high level. We're working with Noble on the customer call scripts, which I know they mentioned over and over again because they're very important. So we're trying to work with them to kind of warm them up from what they were originally to make them a little less technical. So our customers feel very welcome when they call our call center. By June, we'll have a full overhaul of our website, so Circle Point will talk more about that with you. And we're also working on finishing our focus groups. We had a little issue with the transcripts for the Tagalog group or the Filipino group, but that has been finished. And Circle Point will also report back out on that when they come to you next board meeting. We have a number of events and workshops coming up, and I just wanted to highlight the bigger community workshops that we're doing. So we're partnering with staff from all your different cities to hold community workshops throughout the summer, all up until launch. And so we have 4 upcoming, 2 in Menlo Park, one this Saturday and one next Thursday. And the Thursday one is targeted at seniors, so I'm really excited about that. And we also have one on Tuesday in Burlingame and another one on June 1st. It'll possibly change in Millbrae. And we're also working with the town of Hillsborough and a joint one with the cities of Redwood City, San Carlos, and Foster City. So we're trying to hit as many cities as possible, and so have your staff contact us. When would be a good time for you to hold a community workshop? We come and give the presentation. We just ask the cities to help us find the room and also promote the event to get as many people as possible to it. Do you have any questions about outreach and communications right now?
We can
Yes.
all go to each other's cities.
Yes. Please come visit, especially to come to your city. I'd love for you guys to come and represent and talk about why it's important to you, because I think your residents will want to hear from you more than they probably want to hear from me, and especially about your role to know that you guys are participating in this, and this is a county-wide effort and not just county staff doing this. And all the workshops have been advertised to everyone throughout the county, so residents can come to ones in Menlo Park or ones in Burlingame. They're more than welcome. Yes.
Are you inviting reporters to cover it, to hopefully get greater coverage?
We have not invited reporters yet. We have been using some of the local press, like the Menlo Park workshops have been advertised in the Almanac. That's a really good point. And we're starting working on increasing our editorial boards right now and some of our more press outreach. So.
How about you guys?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
And then the next item is on the Citizens Advisory Committee. So we're going to have a standing item from now on where we report out on the recommendations made by your Citizens Advisory Committee. They held their first meeting on May 5th, and they will continue to meet on the first Thursdays of the month at 7 p.m. in Belmont at the 400 Harbor Boulevard building where we used to hold our old advisory committee meetings. So you are all encouraged to attend as members of the audience if you want to hear what they have to say. But tonight I'm here to give you just some of their recommendations that they had in the marketing and outreach plan, which was the main topic of discussion. So some of their suggestions were for the sub-branding to make the colors between the default and 100% options more distinct. They thought they were too confusing and that the colors weren't distinct enough. Don't put the opt-out button first on the website layout, which is something that you guys also brought up. Train or engage members of the community to talk to other residents about Peninsula Clean Energy. So I thought this was a very interesting point in that in some of the communities in our county that local government may not be as trusted. And in those areas, it's really important to identify community leaders that will talk to other residents on behalf of Peninsula Clean Energy. Engaging the schools was another topic that also was brought up by your board. And so we'll definitely work with the School Boards Association, but also superintendents. And we're thinking maybe even helping develop some curriculum that's based on climate change in general, but can also tie back to Peninsula Clean Energy. Ensuring that our outreach and attendance at community workshops represents a diverse cross-section of the county and not just people that are already interested in environmental issues, which is also something that we're trying to work towards and why helping cross-promoting our events is really important. Be more ambitious with our marketing goals. So currently our opt-up rate goal is 5% countywide, and they suggested having 10%, so having more ambitious goals. Display on the front page numbers of opt-outs, opt-ups, and early adopters, which is also something that was brought up by your board. So we're currently working with Circle Point to make our front page interactive, but that will also be dependent on how much information we can get from Noble and how often we can get that information. Engage rental property owners, since renters are also electricity customers, not just owners. And avoid using the word ultra or other type of language, because in the future, 100% renewable will be the norm. So kind of looking towards what the future is going towards and adapting our marketing communications towards that. So those are the main recommendations of the Citizens Advisory Committee. As you can tell, they're a very spot-on group, and I look forward to representing them to your board.
I have a question regarding the composition of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And I think that the number one question is this structure that we have today, is that rigid structure or that's an evolving structure? That's number one question. Number two, there are certain areas that I'm very interested in, and I would like to hear board's opinions too, where we have really addressed our citizens, like demand-side planning, efficiency, better lights, or appliances manufacturers, or architects in the buildings, etc., who should be also part of this advisory group, which go beyond just the ones you have listed. So what is the mechanism by which we can expand or get those people interested?
It is a semi-flexible structure. Every time you make new appointments to the board, your board will have to vote on it. So there were certain organizations that were originally on our advisory committee that decided not to be on the Citizens Advisory Committee. So that did leave open some seats. And as part of your consent calendar item, we did add the San Mateo County Transit District, especially because of electrification of the Caltrain systems, but the increasing electrification of our transportation options, that we thought they would be a good choice. We are trying to add people to the board that have been already involved. So the San Mateo County Transit District have had staff that have come to a lot of the board meetings and already knew what PCE was. But it's definitely open to having suggestions, and it would be up to your board to decide to make those appointments.
And also, if I could add, if this is really considered a kind of an informal, somewhat interim structure, in that when we had the advisory committee, 12 or 15 folks had contributed a great deal. They weren't from the cities, so we wanted to keep them engaged. But one of the to-dos for us as a board is to define what type of membership and selection process we want for the advisory committee, which we'll anticipate maybe completing towards the end of the year. So we'll have a discussion about that probably start at the executive committee level.
Yeah, the current structure roster as is will only go till October. The idea is to kind of continue the momentum the previous advisory committee had, pull it through implementation, and then it's up to your board to decide if you want to continue that or restructure it to be something different.
Okay.
Okay. I have 3 additional items to share with you. The first being is a request of the executive committee to meet. I've engaged the county's risk manager in regards to obtaining insurance for Peninsula Clean Energy. So he has done a lot of research and has provided me with a number of potential items to cover, and then also others that would be considered, not recommended, but worth discussing and understanding the direction for Peninsula Clean Energy. So I just kind of want to initiate this as a request so that Supervisor Pine can reach out to the executive committee and set up a meeting. And we'll have the risk manager come to that committee and make a presentation.
Just on that, does part of the recommendation include directors and officers insurance?
Exactly. Yep. Workman's comp, directors and officers, practice liability, and fiduciary regarding benefit plans, deferred comp, and 401 and other retirement plans. And then there's a number of other items that he's suggested worth considering. So we'll have to dive into the details. And then he's also reached out to a number of insurance companies. He's indicated 6 on the email that he had sent me, so we can share that too with the executive committee. Okay, and then 2 more things. As you noticed, Carolyn has been snapping photos quite regularly tonight, and we do want to respect your privacy. So if for some reason you do not want your picture associated with any of the postings or putting on the websites, would you just please contact Carolyn and just let her know, please? Okay.
You make sure they look good.
Yeah, could we see our hair first? I'd like to know what that is. You told me before.
Sharon, looks like you have some experience in this field.
Yes, I do. Everyone will look great. Thank
Perfect. There we
Thank
go.
You. Airbrush, you fix hair, you fix wrinkles.
Photoshop.
Yes, Photoshop us all.
Yeah, and internally we joked around, if you don't want to be in the picture, but your head's in there, we were going to Photoshop Gordon into the shot. We didn't think that'd be a problem. So just let Carolyn know. And then the last thing I just want to share with you, the thoughts for a preliminary agenda in 2 weeks. We have 3 main items. It's going to be a busy evening. That being Circle Point returning and talking and updating us on the marketing efforts to date so far. Then the second item that we're going to be having is we're asking PEA to come and provide a rate setting 101 session. So we're going to give a little bit of background, really what makes up the efforts with setting those rates, because 2 weeks later, we're going to be asking you to be thinking about and setting those rates. So we do really have some distinct timelines, as Noble had indicated. We really need to know those. We need to be able to publish those, print those on our stock, and get those out to our customers here for the first phase. So we're going to initiate the efforts around energy or rate setting 101 in 2 weeks. And then the third one is going to be relative to a banking partner recommendation. So we're really getting into the specific details, generating, as Michael had mentioned here, a spreadsheet and really diving into those details. We're going to have some thoughts and then be able to show that spreadsheet and the final numbers associated with that and make our recommendation to you. So it'll be a busy evening.
Is that more than the $12 million loan?
That's what I was gonna say, does that include the general banking partner as well, who'll be taking our payments and all that stuff?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so that concludes the county staff report for tonight.
I'm sorry, when you say taking our payments, you mean actually
PG
accepting
payment,
the
money from PG&E
ratepayer,
and all that
the customer money? Maybe.
Okay.
There's a possibility of a more complex structure that involves two banks that we're exploring. You know, I'm happy to discuss it with folks, but I'm happy to discuss it with folks that are interested. There's a possibility of involving two separate banks.
All right, any questions for the team here? Okay, seeing none, any reports from, or comments or inquiries from any board members?
Just like
Yes.
briefly wish our colleague Rick DeGole a happy birthday and thank him for coming to a PCE meeting.
Oh, that's right.
Happy birthday.
Figure that out.
Very impressive. All right, well, on that note, then we will adjourn. Thank you very much for being here.